Hi, I'm Kathy Wellin, and I'm the Nurse Director at LifePlan, and I have 4 children and 8 grandchildren.
And my name is Cheri Gamble, and I'm the Outreach Ministries Director at LifePlan. And I have 5 boys ranging in age from 19 to 9. And today we are going to talk a little bit about the talk. Talking to your kids about sex. So why should you think about talking to your kids about sex now, when your kids are young? A lot of times we don't have a plan about it, and we think we don't have to worry about that until they're teenagers, but that's not true. We really need to start the conversation young, really young, because if we don't do it, then the culture will. There's messages all over the place that are coming at our kids, that are teaching them, and we want to be the first voice to speak into them. So talking to our kids at a young age and thinking about it when they're young is important, and it's so much easier. This should be an ongoing conversation, a discussion that starts when they're young and carries on through all ages and stages of their life. And so we need to be able to start it young when it's not as awkward and not as strange.
Right. I think it's good to be purposeful and proactive in parenting. You need to have a plan before you even start having a family, and start with thinking through what values do you want to instill in your children. Things like loyalty, integrity, honesty, faithfulness, even making wise choices with your health. And in all of those things, you want to include sexuality. I think if you're not proactive in instilling these values in your children, the culture will be instilling them. The other thing is that sexuality permeates our culture right now, and so parents need to have a plan to permeate their children's lives with their own ideals.
Absolutely. We want to instill our values on our kids.
Yes.
So how young do you start talking to your kids about this? Well, really, it does depend a lot on your kids. You need to know your child. You need to know their personality and when they're ready for certain things. Plus, you need to know what they're going to be exposed to. For example, a family that's planning on homeschooling their kids and keeping their kids home might not have to have what we think of as the talk quite as soon as a family who is sending their kids into a public school system where they'd be exposed to it quicker. Also, if they have technology available to them and can see that stuff. So you need to know your child first. But having said that, again, I'll go back to it and reiterate it, that it's important to start young. And there's some simple ways you can start young just by using correct terminology with your kids. When you're changing their diapers or when you're talking to them in the bathtub, referring to body parts with the correct terminology can really help start this conversation, things we don't always think of, but things that are important to do. And having those conversations with kids about those things right away, and then building on it. Kathy, I think you're going to talk a little bit more specifically about some things
For age
that we
groups.
can talk to based on different age groups.
Yes. As Cheri said, it's really important to filter what you say and when you say according to your own child's personality and the environment they're exposed to. Parents need discernment with each child with what they're going to share. I think another thing that's helpful for parents is there are a lot of resources out there. Don't just rely on your own self, and that can put fear in your heart. So there's things like friends. If you see a wise friend who's a little further in their parenting, they might be willing to mentor you through sharing these things with your children. Make sure they kind of have a success rate, that you've seen that in their lives. That's someone you might want to seek out to get help. Another area where you can get help is a place like LifePlan. In the community, there's lots of resources where you can get help. The third thing I think of, and what I'm going to share today, is books or online help. One book series that I've referred to is by Stan and Brenna Jones, and they've broken down their focus of teaching on sexuality into 4 different age groups. So the first age group they start with is preschool, and it's ages 3 to 5. And in that book, the teaching focuses on how our bodies are wonderfully made and how sex is a marvelous gift. Another thing they focus on there Well, another thing you might want to focus on in that age group is instilling your own personal values. Maybe that sexuality within marriage is something you value and you want to focus on that in that age group. The next age group is elementary age, children's ages 5 to 8. And depending on the environment and what your children's exposed to, you may be inclined to share a little bit more about the child's physical growth heading toward puberty. You may feel led to explain some details on human reproduction, because a lot of children at this age have siblings coming into the world, and it's a good opportunity to be able to share. The next group is the middle school age, and that's 8 to 12-year-olds. And again, you're building on past teaching, and this is a good time to allow your children to ask questions. You want to build an atmosphere of trust and not fear, and you want to continue to build on the values that you're wanting to instill in your child. And this is a good time to maybe bring up some of the negative issues that are going on in your culture and share those with your child in a way that is appropriate. The age group that you might want to work with is ages 12 to 16. And this is a good time to go into more in-depth teaching on sexual intercourse. And it's a good time to encourage your child to make wise choices regarding their sexual health, both physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And just keep in mind that this is a journey that your child's going to be on, and that you need to walk alongside with them, give them support, and encourage them with answers, whatever they're facing.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that it was a journey that we're on, as we talked about at the beginning, having conversations, and if you start it young, it makes it easier to have those conversations and to take advantage of moments that come up. I know we've had several times in our family, I don't know, you probably have in yours, where a kid will just ask a question about something that can easily lead to a conversation. I think of something that happened just a couple weeks ago with our youngest at the dinner table, where he asked a question about marriage and divorce. And we were able to go just, not go into a sermon or preaching at all, but you have a discussion about where your values are, and you can bring it into these things. And knowing that they can come to you and that they can talk to you about these things and that you can discuss with it will make it easier as you go into the talk. Be intentional and make it an ongoing conversation starting very young all the way up.